The action genre is still firmly planted in the John Wick era of crime revenge films, but it's also not necessarily fair to give Keanu Reeves' action icon all the credit. It's abundantly clear that the John Wick films' propensity for practicality are partially inspired by action legends from abroad, with some of the best modern examples including Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan, and Donnie Yen, the latter of whom would eventually join the Wickiverse as Kane in John Wick Chapter 4. Other notable examples are Louis Koo and Sammo Kambo Hung, both of whom happen to co-star in a new ambitious martial arts project, Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In. From director Soi Chang, Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In is the first of a planned trilogy, with one being a prequel and the other being a sequel. While it may seem like an over-the-top action spectacle that uses a late 1900s Hong Kong as a backdrop, this potential franchise starter surprisingly has more in common with a Star Wars movie rather than your typical martial arts film. This is orchestrated through a pretty well-developed world and some out-of-this-world action sequences, as well as some pretty goofy and absurd shenanigans. What is Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In about? Set in Hong Kong during the 1980s, Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In is the story of Chan Lok Kwan, an immigrant trying to make ends meet by competing in brutal fight clubs. He eventually gets on the bad side of the town's most ruthless crime lord, Mr. Big, and his psychotic right-hand man, King, and Chan finds unexpected refuge in the walled city. This tight-knit community and collection of misfits is overseen by another respected crime boss, Cyclone, who decides to take the young fighter under his wing. While Chan Lok Kwan forms new friendships and starts a new life in this community, the setting becomes more and more dangerous when elements of his past are slowly revealed. While he might not technically be the main character, Louis Koo's Cyclone feels like the main character of Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In, not just because of his importance in the plot, but also because he's responsible for some of the film's best moments, regardless of whether the film is focused on action, drama, or comedy. Beyond him having one of the coolest nicknames ever in Cyclone, he's certainly one of the most developed and engaging characters in the entire film. The main weak link of the cast is Raymond Lam's Chan Lok Kwan, who, despite being a strong physical force in the film's various fight scenes, isn't the most dynamic or interesting protagonist. He's a very standard adventure tale hero who fits the generic chosen one archetype to a T. Thankfully, the other side characters of the film are a delight to watch on screen. Other standouts are Chan's crew of companions, the two crime bosses who are Cyclone's tepid allies, and certainly the villainous Mr. Big and King, who gleefully chew up the scenery every chance they get. Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In's action scenes are gleeful, goofy fun, the bread and butter of Twilight of the Warriors. Walled In are its action sequences, which get more absurd the longer the film goes on. Much like a spectacle such as RRR, the laws of physics and reality simply do not apply to this world and its characters. Even something as simple as a fist fight on a bus results in metal being bent through sheer force alone. If you're looking for realism in your fight choreography, you won't find that here, but you will still get some pretty inventive combat, and a very, very funny part where four bros team up to slam an abusive thug repeatedly on the ground. Despite the wanton destruction of what would typically leave a building unscathed, Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In mostly plays things fairly straight, being a fairly straightforward story about Hong Kong's criminal underworld. That's until, completely out of the blue, it's revealed that one of the characters in the film has genuine superpowers. It comes completely out of nowhere and is a pill that's a bit too big to swallow, even when one suspends their disbelief. As unrealistic as the action may be, it's still a ton of fun to watch unfold. Every action scene in Walled In has some sort of wacky element incorporated to keep things memorable and fun, from using unconscious bodies as a weapon to biting off the tips of machetes. This all culminates in an absolutely bonkers finale that will leave audiences cheering on a lovable quartet of heroes. Twilight of the Warriors has a world worth exploring. One character with superpowers notwithstanding, Twilight of the Warriors: Walled In is still a very terrestrial-based story, which is what makes its world all the more intriguing. The dramatic backstory isn't anything to write home about, as the origins of this walled city are fairly reminiscent of other epic stories. Granted, the modern crime theming does make things a bit more unique. Still, the world and setting here is intriguing, and the culture and day-to-day operations behind this almost hidden part of Hong Kong has room for some deeper diving. That makes Walled In a decent enough starting point for a wider trilogy for the prospective Twilight of the Warriors saga. According to Soi Chang via The Hollywood Reporter, there are plans for a prequel, presumably diving deeper into the history of Cyclone before he became the Walled City Steward, and a sequel that will continue where Walled In leaves off. The ending of Twilight of the Warriors. Walled In already feels pretty definitive, but should that prequel and sequel end up seeing the twilight of day, the first film in the series might continue to become more and more exciting over time. As it stands now, Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In is still a more than competent, entertaining, action-packed ride, even if it's not the most original in terms of its plot. Twilight of the Warriors, Walled In is now streaming on Prime Video.